Welcome everybody to another exciting episode. Well, I find it exciting anyway. I like doing these, and usually the guests on here don't really mind it either. So we'll try to keep it that way, I guess. So anyway, without further ado, we got a really awesome guy all the way in my neighbor of a state, all the way over in New York. Well, upstate New York, but we're technically neighbors because I'm from Vermont and all that jazz. But please welcome David Whalen. David, thanks so much for joining.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate your time, because I usually try to work with everybody and try to make sure everything fit and all that jazz. Because you know how it is; it's like something can come up any point in time, so it's really hard to really plan something like this too.
It can be hard to schedule, so I appreciate you having me on.
Yes, thank you so much, and thank you for bearing with me too, because we've been busy with our upcoming short horror film too. But that's not even about that. We're here to talk about your let's see, what's the best way to word this? I guess oh man, what would be a really good way to word it? You got a really nice I would just say catalog of a comic series called The Offspring.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what did I remember hearing? And you can correct me. There's 10 issues in the series.
Just last month at the end of September, published issue 10. Yep.
All right. Well, there we go. That's awesome. And so before we get started, David, for somebody like me and for those that are listening, can you tell us a little bit about yourself of like who you are and why did you choose to dive into like a paranormal horror superhero type of comic?
Yeah, I'm a husband and father of two young kids, and like a lot of creators in my position that do indie comics, really try to, in between the being a father and full-time job, I'm an art teacher also. Decided that it was time to start, instead of just thinking about and writing down all my ideas for comic books or for stories that I had. It was time to start getting them out. So I'd say about 2 years ago, I started putting together the Offspring in a real way. I've had the story since I was 16 years old, a million years ago, and just decided about 2 or 3 years ago to really start putting it together. Got out issue 1 about a year and a half ago, and it's been all uphill from there. Really trying to make sure that when I do the Offspring, I kind of describe it as a horror, sci-fi, action adventure, so it's kind of crossing genres from time to time. But the first 4 issues that I have out in trade paperback right now are very much in the realm of like horror, thriller, paranormal genre, and I try to stick with that genre throughout. But the next storyline I have coming is actually a sci-fi time travel story with the same characters, same storyline going on to one long storyline throughout the whole thing. But making sure that when I started, I had a story that if I wanted to change genres quickly, I definitely could, and that's something I'm going to be doing in the next couple issues here. So it's really been a fun ride, and I'm really happy to have issue 10 out. Not a lot of creators in my position get to have that many issues out in the span of 2 years that I've done it. So I've been really lucky to have the support of my wife and kids and family to be able to do what I love doing, and it's been awesome.
Yeah, that is awesome. I mean, I kudos for you for making a comic because I don't think I would be able to do it myself. But then again, any type of drawing is technically a comic anyway. So I guess my stick figure could pass too. So
Sure, yeah.
Yeah,
It's finding the right story, right? So if the art goes along with that story, then you've got it. You got it down.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some scribbles here and there, maybe a smiley face and something to kind of make it look emotional. Or I mean, I don't know. So as I saw too, I don't know if it had changed at all within the other 8 issues, but I know in issue 1 it was pretty much all you doing everything from creating it, writing it, lettering it, and inking. And then you had Jason Silvestri, I think that's how you say his name.
Yep.
As the artist that did the coloring, and then from issue 2, and I don't know if it's been been this way since, but it's been just you doing everything.
It's been mostly me. I think there was one issue. I think issue 4. I was able to have somebody come in and do the coloring for me just to speed me up a little bit. And oh my gosh, his name is escaping me right now, so I apologize to that colorist. But since there's been 2 issues of the 10 that I haven't colored. Everything else has been all me.
Wow, that's crazy. Now,
I'm
how
a
much?
one-man band.
Yeah, well, that's not always a bad thing. I mean, if we can be honest here, I would just say that it is kind of hard to find the right people to do the job, especially ones that don't slow down the process. If that makes
Yeah.
any sense.
Oh yeah, especially in the indie comics or indie anything, situation. It's somebody, if you find somebody that's willing to jump in with you, knowing that a payday might not be that big, or even in some cases you'd be waiting for years for any kind of like payday for it. It's hard to stay motivated. It's really hard to stay motivated, especially if it's not your idea. So that's one of the reasons that I've tried to just go ahead and just do it myself. I know what I want. I know what I want it to look like, and I can make it as close to what's in my brain as I possibly can. And somebody else who was maybe drawing or inking or coloring it probably wouldn't be able to read my mind. So so doing it myself is one of those things that it takes a long time to get one out, but once you're done, you know it's yours and you did it, and you didn't have to compromise at all.
That's very true. I will agree with that, and it it does. I mean, I've published a couple poetry books that I've done,
Awesome.
and just that satisfaction of holding your own piece of work that even in that you made yourself, like all of it, and just knowing you this like hard work has paid off because now you can say like, oh, I published a book or I made a comic or whatever, and it's just like it's like this is cool, this is nice. Like I told myself I wanted to do this and I did, and like in your case it almost seems like you sort of caught the bug because here we are 10 issues later in this very interesting, as you say, sci-fi action paranormal superhero story that you got.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I definitely. Like so many, comic book lovers, I've been reading comic books since the '70s, and knew right away that I wanted to be an artist. And life got in the way a little bit in my 20s and my early 30s. But once I got that first issue out, I knew I'm like, okay, I found my thing. let's keep this going until I can't do it anymore.
Oh geez.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, did you take any type of classes for drawing, or was it mainly like art classes back in the day, or did you actually take any type of uh, classes to really make you learn how to do like the inking, the lettering, any type of things at all?
That specifically talked about comic booking. No, but I have a master's degree in graphic arts and education. So I've been schooling myself in the arts for a long, long time. I would say that the most comic book education I've had was the Joe Kubert school of comic books that they have that you can sign up for, and they send you something and you can do it and send it back and get graded. I did 2 or 3 of those, and it was immensely helpful. I did those, I'd say, probably, let's see, 20 years ago. I did 2 or 3 of those, and it was an amazing experience to be able to sit down and have all the information that they had and be able to send it back and then get actual feedback from an actual comic book creator. But I would say that that's the most comic book education that I've had since I was very lucky that when I was about 14 or so, I told my parents, I'm like, I'm pretty good at this. I want to see if I can get better at it. And they said, great, what do you want to do? How do you want to do that? So I asked my art teacher that I had in school, and she said, if you really want to do this, figure drawing is the way to go. So I was a 14-year-old taking community classes at the YMCA of nude figure drawing. So I was very lucky to be able to have parents who knew that I was a 13-14-year-old who wanted to be an artist, not just look at nude people, and be able to go into these classes. And I did those classes till I was probably 17 or 18 years old, got into actual college, did it in college, and then still do those figure drawing classes today. I sign up for them, I organize them, so it's something that I've been doing since I said like I was 13 or 14 years old, that has been instrumental in creating comic books and be able to create those, build those, like they call it world building, be able to world build, be able to have those characters that not only look realistic, but can also have personalities. Also, it's been very, very helpful, and I commend my parents on being parents who were able to see that I really wanted to do this and be able to put me in things that most parents wouldn't let their 13-year-old do.
Wow. Well, that's crazy right there. And once again, I would just say I give you props. And within, so like everybody, there's an inspiration for what they want to do. So in this case, what really motivated you to want to really start making your own comic to begin with? Was there a specific comic series that you were reading, or something just like a movie or something that really kind of sparked your creativity to kind of just be like, this is what I like, as you just said, this is what I want to do. I found what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I'd always been a fan of superheroes. Superheroes just in general, Superman, Batman for the most part were the ones that I followed. Spider-Man and Captain America also on some degree. But I always really liked superheroes. What I didn't like was, like I said, I've had these characters since I was maybe 15 or 16 years old. What I didn't like is I didn't see enough of me as a 15, 16, maybe even 17, 18-year-old. So what I wanted to do, and I was always a big fan of the paranormal and science fiction, so I, long before they did Smallville and No Flights, No Tights kind of thing, which was big in the 90s when they did Smallville. They said he's going to have all the powers, but he's not going to wear the spandex. I decided when I was 15 or 16, and this had to be, oh my gosh, 1990. 1991, I had said, I'm going to do some characters that do have powers, but they're never going to be in costume. They're going to have, nickname, I guess code names, but they're rarely going to use them. And they're going to fight things that I'm interested in seeing, like monsters and ghosts and cults and bad guys and all the things that maybe you wouldn't normally see in a Superman comic book, but still be able to relate to these characters as real people. They've got problems. They've had ridiculously hard lives, and they've been kind of forced together. And through that being forced together and having these ridiculously hard lives that they've had because they're in their early 20s, 21, 22-ish, during the course of the series, being able to see how these characters not only grow and change and be better and help people, but also how they make mistakes also, how they try to do something and they're trying to do the best they can, but they've never had those role models to be able to show them what the good decision is. So it's not just these characters growing and changing and being better, it's these characters growing and changing and falling and making mistakes a lot on the way. And that was something that I wanted to see when I was a kid and still love to see now in characters, for movies and comic books and TV shows. Real people who make mistakes, because nobody, unless your name is Clark Kent, is perfect. And that was something that I wanted to definitely show in my books.
Well, I believe it's really showed that they're starting. If I kind of remember from reading, it really kind of showed that a little bit in the first one, but it really showed it more of start of what you were just talking about in issue 2, I believe, right?
Yeah. I hint at it a lot. Hint at for the first 3 issues. It's definitely a slow burn on their backstory, trying to figure out who the characters are, and then moving forward with the big bad that they're trying to stop in the first 4 issues of the series.
Yes, but it does help that you at least gave us like character bio too, so we can actually learn who they are, especially the villain. You kind of gave a little brief description of those guys too, or her, depending on who it is. But yeah, I mean, it's always nice to see that too, because a lot of people don't do that anymore. And then when they do see that there's not enough information to learn a character or something specific, really and you're trying to get the audience to be like, this is the character I want you guys to like,
Yeah.
but we can't like them because it's like you're not giving us enough information to cling onto. We don't really know enough of the background to really say like, oh, this is why we can like her or him,
Yeah.
depending on what the character is.
Yeah, it's so hard, and especially in an ongoing series like this. As an indie creator, you wanna jump the shark as fast as you can to give them everybody, the readers, all the information to make sure they're on board. But you also need a slow burn to make sure that you don't, like I said, don't jump the shark so fast that everybody's like, well, I know everything I need to know in the first 4 issues, so why am I going to continue reading this? So it's definitely been a juggling act of trying to figure out when and where and how to give more of that backstory. I will say that in issues 11, 12, and 13, a lot of the questions that came up from issues 1 through 10 are definitely going to be answered. There's the storyline I have for that 3 issues that really hones in on why these things are happening to these kids, who's making them happen, and how the kids move forward from there. Because even though those questions get answered, there's still so many more questions after their initial questions get answered that is going to propel the series into the next 13 issues.
Okay, so that's your goal in a way is
Oh yeah.
13 issues per I guess we could almost say season, because I mean usually a comic book series doesn't really go past what is it, 4 or 5 issues, I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
especially as an indie creator, it can be hard to get more than 3 or 4 issues before everybody's like, okay, we did it. So yeah, seasons is actually exactly what my plan was: 13 episodes or 13 issues a season, and then be able to move forward with the story and be able to change it. Still same characters, still the same storyline, but push it forward so it's recognizable as the same series, but it's also evolved and moved forward from what it was in the first 13 issues.
that makes sense. And
Yeah,
just to maybe clear up another question that I had real quick
please.
is since you do have the 10 issues now, is what is the trade paperback that I was kind of reading about? I know it's like volume 1 of the Offspring. Now, is that the first 10 issues, or how? What is that one?
That's the first 4 issues.
First 4
So
issues.
that's the first storyline that I used to introduce the characters and their powers, and to be able to kind of give a heads up on what their mission statement as a group of friends was when things like this happened. Because, like I said, they're making mistakes throughout the entire run of this series. But one of the mistakes is this our job to help these people? Is it something that we should take responsibility for? And that was definitely a question I wanted to ask in the first 4 issues of, is this our problem? Which a lot of people would ask that question and say, no, this isn't our problem. This is somebody else's problem. Let's pawn it off on somebody else, or just ignore it, and then we can make our lives easier that way. But that was definitely a theme of those 3 characters of, we've got problems of our own. Why is it our job to help these other people? And that's definitely in the first 4 issues, letting the reader and those characters decide what they were going to do moving forward. Were they people who helped, or were they people who ignored problems? And that was a question I wanted to answer in the first 4 issues. So there's first 4 issues, that first storyline. Definitely, there's an ending, but then it's an ending with a fresh new beginning for these characters to move forward, to be able to say, okay, we are the people that will help in this situation. And it's even just helping themselves, helping each other. Maybe it's not a big, community-wide thing where they're saving the world, but it's just saying we have decided, the 3 of us are a team, and we're going to help each other no matter what. Which is a question that they had to ask themselves. Do we care enough about each other to be able to put our lives in danger for each other? And hopefully at the end of issue 4, their answer was yes.
So it's almost like, in a way, it's like they're balancing each other out by
Yeah.
helping them grow and understand themselves, and like you said, like pretty much tackle what needs to be done. So yeah, I like that. I like that. There's not really that much of that even going on anymore either, where it's got a strong message like that. So I do give you kudos again for that. And I
Well, thank you
gotta
very much.
check out the other issues anyway. So I'll have to dig out the links again and check out your entire series. I think
Yeah, that'd be
so.
great. Thanks. Yeah, the first 4 issues are definitely a team book with all 3 of them as the focus issue. The next 2 issues after that, 5 and 6 issues, focus just on Vince. The other characters are in there also, and they help him throughout his storyline. But the focus is on Vince and his problems, and gives a little bit more backstory to Vince. The next 2 issues, where are we? 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are Will and his backstory, and giving a little bit more info on his powers and his backstory and how he got to where he was. And then 9 and 10, which I just, like I said, published issue 10, is definitely Sarah's backstory, and Sarah is giving a little bit more information on Sarah and how she thinks. And I would say that Sarah is the heart of the whole thing. She's a strong, powerful woman who's not going to take crud from anybody, and the boys are there not only to they're not just there to support her. They're all there to support each other. But she's, I would say, definitely the heart of the whole story, and probably one of my favorite characters in the story.
I could see why. She seemed to have like that heart of gold anyway, where she wants to help anybody that she can,
Yeah.
and everybody else kind of seemed like the normal friends where we get. I'm gonna have to look at character names again. Let me see here
There's
real quick.
Vince, who is the blonde-haired kid, and Will is the short African-American guy.
Yeah, so I'm thinking of, I believe it's Will, and Will when he was trying to like he was in a school, I think, reading, and Vince comes walking in, and he's like, "Oh, hey," and stuff like that, and it's almost like that. Hmm, I'm almost want to say bromance. I want to say that's going on here, like
Yeah,
the way
they're
they're
old friends.
talking.
Yeah, they're old friends. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really nice to kind of see like characters that kind of have that type of bromance anyway, because you kind of do have those type of best friends that have each other's back and look out for one another,
Mm-hmm.
and then we get Silas, or I think I said that right.
Silas,
Silas.
yeah, Silas Cherry Street, the bad guy.
Yep, the bad guy who just sounds to. I don't even know how to really like word him, except for like I think what the bio says, where it's like um let's see where that thing that it really like it catches. He has spent his life doing as little as possible and expecting the world to be handed to him. So yeah,
Yep.
he just sounds like he's just one of those guys that just doesn't want to just really do anything, but at the same time he can achieve things that are I don't want to say too much because of people listening, like, but at the same time, it's like, let's put it this way: still, the reason why he's also really bad too is he ended up murdering his wife and kids. So yeah, um,
Yeah.
yeah, that's really like where it's at for this guy. So if he can
Yeah,
do
he
that,
actually. Yeah, my plan for him is again a long-term plan. If you look through issues, the 1 through 8, I've peppered in some stuff that are hints to things that are going to happen in the future. And I'm hoping that when I get there and people read the storyline 50 issues down the road, and they go, "Wait a minute, didn't we see this already in issue 4?" And they'll go back and say, "Oh, he did have a plan. He did have everything that was going to happen was planned out. He wasn't just making it up as he went along." So Silas is definitely a character that's going to come back after, actually, I think it's season 3, if we're going by season 3. And then we're going to get a lot more backstory on him and a lot more moving him forward. But he's definitely, for me, as a character, an analogy for a lot of people in the world that think that something should be handed to them, and them make no effort to do anything about it or do anything for it. Just like it's, I deserve to have this because I'm breathing in the world, instead of I need to go earn what I'm doing to be able to get what I need to survive, and maybe even, earn a little bit more from my hard work. So he's definitely a character that is an analogy for a lot of the problems that we have in society today.
Ain't that the truth?
Yeah. Unfortunately, too many of us have seen that firsthand. Yeah.
Well, oh man, this is probably the worst time to bring it up, but I mean, this kind of fits like what we're talking about here, especially what this villain is, who murdered pretty much his whole family.
Yeah.
For those listening, I'm gonna probably ruin your childhood, so let's just say skip let's say skip 30 seconds ahead. Okay, skip it right now.
Spoilers for their childhood.
Yeah, spoilers for the childhood. So, if anybody remembers the original Land Before Time, and remembered the character Ducky, she was actually murdered by her father.
Yeah.
So, if anybody did not know that, yeah, there you go. Now you do. So hopefully it wasn't too much of a burn. And if you really don't believe me, look it up, because it's there. It's really there.
Well, I saw too on your, if I can bring that full circle, on your Twitter feed, you were talking about people who park in the handicap spaces but aren't handicapped. They, there should be a special penalty for them, or a special place in hell. That made me laugh out loud, because I feel the same way about people who don't park inside the lines. People who just ignore the parking space lines. those people deserve a special kind of punishment, because that drives me crazy.
Oh yeah.
You should tell them about that one car at the Social Security office we saw one day.
That's the one that we're talking about.
That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, that's the one we're talking about. Where we was in the car waiting for you, and then she just drives up and just parks in the parking space, and then just walks into the office, because I'm assuming she worked there because she used the side door. So
I've seen some pretty cool stuff that people have done to non-handicapped drivers' cars. Like, for instance, I've seen people like bike lock like a cart to the person's car door. I've seen people do all sorts of crazy shit to non-handicapped driver vehicles, and it's like, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's one thing that we need to teach in our public schools. It's empathy, because a lot of people don't have it. A lot of people don't see past their own noses and don't see how their actions affect other people. They're just worried about making sure that they get their thing, rather than working as a team. We could all get all of our things if we just all work together a little bit more. Empathy is definitely a lack of empathy is definitely a problem, I would say, in society. And those are just small examples of how empathy is lacking, and how empathy could make our lives a little easier if we just look past our own noses a little bit.
Well, I agree with you there, but in this case, in this generation, I think we need to look past our cell phones.
Yeah, that would be helpful. Also, get out of the screen. Yeah, get your nose out of your screen. Yep.
Yep, but I mean that's the problem now with generation. The parents give their kid a cell phone, and then that's all they know.
Yep.
And then they wonder why they don't have the social skills to talk to somebody person to person, instead of just sitting there and texting and whatever. So I mean,
interpersonal communication skills are definitely lacking these days. Yep.
Oh yeah, it's probably going to get worse, but until then, I mean, whatever.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure it all out as a society. We'll get it taken care of.
I hope so. We're just superhero. Oh wait.
Yeah.
But so, out of curiosity, with the first 10 issues that you have now, well, with this, maybe that might be a little bit too much, but just out of curiosity, from the issue that you have out now,
Mhm.
is there any type of specific issue that you kind of wish to go back to either fix or change or add something into, where you're kind of like, now that it's been out a while and you're just like, maybe I should have done that instead, or is there anything like that at all?
There have been some things where I wish that I maybe not the storyline itself, but just tiny little tweaks or aspects of the environment, or little aspects, or maybe even a line that a character had said that maybe honed in on their personality a little bit more. I think one of the reasons that I've been able to get 10 issues out, and maybe a lot of people don't in my situation, is because we're perfectionists. We want everything that we put out to be 100% exactly what we want it to be, and there is no room for any kind of adjustment or movement. And I think that, especially after the first 4 issues, I kind of let that go. I'm, not to say that I don't put my best foot forward. I always try to, but there's always going to be things that you look back on and go, oh man, that would have been a great line, or that would have been a better setting for this situation, or even just adjusting. There is one thing that I did, and I won't tell you what issue or anything like that, but I wish that I had made it during Halloween. So I'll let the readers see if they can figure out where maybe it could have been a Halloween type theme to it, but it would have set the tone a little bit better. And I think that it was definitely an opportunity missed by me to really hone in on that spooky theme that I was trying to get across in one of the storylines. That, like I said, I'll let the reader try to figure out where that could have gone.
Fair enough.
But yeah, there's always things that you look back and go, oh man, that if I would have done that better, or if I would have made that panel this way, it would have communicated that idea a little bit better. But going backwards is never helpful to me. so I just learn from that experience and I move forward.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess what you could do now, as in moving forward, I guess you could take what you wanted to do and somehow incorporate them into the future episode that we're gonna call it now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's always that, which is nice to do anyway, because I mean, maybe it's nice to kind of jump around like you even do with issue 1 and so forth, is like the flashback. Like somebody will mention something specific, like what was that quote in issue 1 where when she's in jail and somebody was just like, oh, it's just as easy as riding a bike, and she's like, yeah, just like riding a bike, and then we get that flashback. Yeah, I thought that was really cool and nice. And
I enjoy my transitions that connect with each other. I enjoy those. So trying to find ways to connect scene to scene, even though the scenes might not be directly related to each other, I enjoy those transitions. So yeah, I enjoy that one also. Thank you.
It's like Family Guy moments, Peter will say something stupid, and then we get that flashback.
Yep.
Or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's just another example. But yeah, I like those. Another thing that really interested me too is, since you mentioned the paranormal, so out of curiosity, and I don't know if you read our, I know you shared them around, but I don't know if you actually read them story of the 2 reviews, but the issue 1 review that our friend Darsh did for you guys is, so I guess I'm trying to figure out where he maybe have heard it from, or if this was just him thinking because of the whole Crybaby Bridge thing. So with the paranormal aspect now is, the first question I kind of would like to ask is, do you actually believe in the paranormal? And 2, was this Crybaby Bridge any type of specific location that you used in the flashback?
Yeah, I read Darsh's. Read all the reviews that anybody does for him. I'm so grateful to people like you who read the stuff and help us get it out there as indie creators. But yeah, I definitely read the review, and I read that, and it made me smile. First of all, I love paranormal stuff, like paranormal investigation type shows. And I made my wife watch a thing about Loch Ness Monster last night, and she was not too happy with me about it, but I loved it. I thought it was great. So I am definitely a big fan of the paranormal. I will say that I don't think, as far as like ghosts and apparitions and things like that, something is happening, but I don't think we know exactly what it is yet. So a lot of people have their ideas or have their hopes or have their feelings about what it is. Something's happening, but I think hopefully in the next 20, 25 years, somebody will put some money to a scientist to be able to figure out what's really happening. Because as you know, if you believe Einstein, and he's one of the smartest people that ever lived, so I'm going to believe him. Energy never dies. And our bodies and our emotions and our everything that makes us is energy. So when our bodies die, that energy has to go somewhere. So if it's still here around us, maybe somehow it gets trapped in a loop. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I think that
expert.
Yeah. But something's happening, and I just want to know what it is. So I'm a huge fan of paranormal, huge fan of like ghost hunters and ghost investigators and things like that, and I'll soak that stuff in as much as I can. Crybaby Bridge. I think I've lived in 3 states, and I've had family members who have lived in multiple states other than ones I've lived in. And in most of those states that I've visited and been at for long periods of time, there's been a Crybaby Bridge in those states. So I grew up in Ohio, and where I'm from in Ohio, there's a Crybaby Bridge. And I know there are multiple Crybaby Bridges throughout the United States, just because it's a cool, there's cool mythology behind it and cool stories and spooky stuff to be able to tell, at midnight when you're trying to scare your friends. So I put Crybaby Bridge there as kind of an homage or a pointing to those stories that I grew up with, where I came from in Ohio, to be able to put something that I'd actually been there and seen the bridge and been spooked out, to be able to put that in was just a little, me pointing out my own experiences as a teenager, and to have my brothers and sisters essentially laugh because they had been there also. So that's where Crybaby Bridge came from.
That's very cool. I like that. Yeah, of course, Vermont has its own Crybaby Bridge and stuff like that. So it was just kind of funny because I was just like, how did he get that Vermont reference? But maybe he was just thinking because I've said it a couple times, so maybe I don't know. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know.
Yeah, there's one in Ohio that I've been Central Ohio that I've been to with my buddies in high school, and we'd take everybody up there to get scared and then go get some hot chocolate at the end.
Pretty much.
So yeah.
Oh man, that's funny. Well, it is October, so I just had to ask it anyway. But anything paranormal, I gotta ask anyway because I'm a huge believer in paranormal. So, and I used to do my own paranormal investigations. So,
oh, really? Awesome.
Yep. So, but yeah, to get back on track just a little bit too is like moving forward as you we're saying 13 issues in a season. Mm-hmm. Now, and you also mentioned, what was it? Within almost 2 years of you starting this, you got the 10 issues. So I guess how long did it take to actually take? Yeah, geez, a long week and a long day today. I've been up since 5, so please pardon me.
No problem.
Anyway, so with each issue, how long has it taken to make an issue? Because 2 years and there's 10 issues. Is that like one every, this is just me estimating, 3 to 4 months?
I'd say I can if I am really honed in and while still taking care of my responsibilities as a dad and a teacher and a husband, I would say that 2 months is a good guesstimate of how long it takes me to get one issue done.
Yeah.
So in the 2 years, 10 issues. So there's a little bit of wiggle room in there for time, but that's usually about what it takes me. About 2 months. There are times where obviously life gets in the way a little bit, and I've got to put that on the back burner to be able to take care of other things. But yeah, 2 months if I can really focus.
Fair enough.
And I've got books 11, 12, and 13 already thumbnailed out. It's just a matter now of me pushing forward and getting the pencils and the inks and getting it all done.
Okay, well, I know we're in October right now, David, but I know we got like 2 more months. But we're going to be seeing issue 11 then before the end of the year?
I'm hoping issue 11 in December. I actually had to. I'm starting doing a one-shot also to keep myself fresh and interested and moving forward. I'm doing a one-shot that I wrote that's going to be a black and white 25-page one-shot. So I'm working on that right now, knowing I've got issue 11 already thumbnailed and ready to go. I'm hoping to be able to be finished with that one-shot by the end of October, and then have November and December and be able to get out the issue 11 before Christmas. So I'm pushing myself a little bit, but I need to.
Well, hey, it's like you just said earlier, you found something that you want to do and you want to stick to it until you can't anymore. So that's good. I mean, pushing yourself too is another way of learning about yourself too, where you can see like what you can really do and what you can't do. So then that way you can kind of gather your thoughts into, okay, well, I know that as I push myself to try to do it, this is just an example, but let's just say 1 month, and this is what I want done in a month, whether it be the whole thing or not. And then you could say like, so this is 1 month. I just want the sketches, the ink, and the color done by 1 month, and then maybe month 2 will be like going through, maybe recoloring and the lettering again or whatever you need to do, and then publish it or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's always cool to learn like what's your process, I guess. Like how, I guess what I mean is so I know you got to write it out first, and do you visually see it to draw it, or do you have to kind of read it to yourself like again and again to kind of be like, okay, this is what I want to do?
Well, I'm an artist first, writer second. So if anybody ever asks me advice, which many people do not, but if anybody ever asks me, what as an artist, what can I do? And I say, learn how to write. And if anybody asks me as a writer, what can I do? Learn how to draw. Would be usually my answer, because like I said, nobody will love it as much as you do. Nobody will love your thing as much as you do. So when I started off, like I said, 16, 17 years old, I said, okay, I got the drawing thing. I'm really working hard to be the best I can at that, but I also want to learn how to write my own stories also. So in the span of the 30 years it's been now, that I've really tried to become the best writer that I can at publishing my own novel, and all those things to be able to push my writing forward as much as I can push my drawing and visuals forward. So my goal when I set out to do an issue is to make sure I've got it plotted out. And like I said, I've got about 50 issues loosely plotted out for the rest of the series. And then I'll plot out the step-by-step the issue itself of just action beats of what's going to happen for each moment-to-moment, page-to-page. And then I'll sit down and I'll thumbnail out from page to page what I want each panel and each page to look like, making sure I've got the rhythm down, the storyboarding down, the making sure that the reader can pick up what's going on even without reading the word balloons or any of the words in it. And then I'll make sure that I'm between 25 to 30 pages, because I found any more than that and I'll just set myself up to fail. So I'm making sure that if there are story beats that don't quite work, that's the area when I thumbnail them out. That's the area that I'll sit and try to fix any of those problems that we talked about earlier, any of those little issues that I may have. And from there, once I've got the thumbnails down, it's just a matter of finding the reference photos and the things that I need to be able to make sure my backgrounds are solid and my character designs and the characters are doing all the things that I know they should be doing from their personalities. So after I get the thumbnails, it's really just all about fun drawing and telling that story. Once I get it penciled and inked, then it's just trying to bust through the colors. I can get a page done a day when I'm coloring if I'm really focused. And some days I'm less focused than others, obviously. So, so that's essentially my process.
Oh, nice. That sounds actually really good compared to some people that we all kind of know and see and stuff and hear about. Really, I mean, because that's what happens with what I was kind of saying earlier, like trying to find the people that we really want to work with,
Yeah.
and because it does lead into delays, which I've seen a couple comic series definitely go into delays. But it's either personal issues or something else is going on that we may not really know what's really going on. So
yeah, I think that most people who are fans of indie comics understand that. I mean, you've got the big boys who sometimes mess up, and sometimes a book is delayed for 3 or 4 months.
Yep.
So if it happens to the big boys every once in a while, it's definitely going to happen to the indie creators. So I think that those people who are fans of indie comics or indie anything kind of understand that and are a little bit more lenient, especially when they know that you're not just the comic books is probably not your day job. You're doing a day job and then doing the comic books when you can in between. So I think most people who are fans of indie understand that and are usually pretty happy to give you a little leeway on the time, which is nice.
Some are.
Some are, not all. But that's good. If they're excited about getting the next issue, that means that they're fans. That means they want to read what you're doing, and that's the bottom line. Just having people out there enjoy what you're doing as much as I enjoy doing it. So, so if somebody gets mad at me for not having a book out fast enough, I won't be mad at them. I'll be happy. I'm like, I'm going to speed up for you, man, so I can get this book out so you're happy. I appreciate that.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, we can't please everybody, and that's a good thing. We can't always like the same thing and whatever. So otherwise, it's the same stuff over and over repeatedly, and it's just nothing new.
Oh yeah.
So David, I don't want to take up any more time, but the last thing
I'm having a good time.
Yeah, the last couple things that I actually want to ask you too is one is when you were starting to write The Offspring, were you ever thinking about any type of mission? I guess this might sound weird, but like, is there any type of message or mission statement that you're trying to also try to say through your comic?
I would say the only mission statement I really had didn't even really have to do with the story itself. The story is really just these 3 characters, and eventually, a little spoiler here, eventually 4 main characters, eventually, that will that learn and grow and change with each other. Was really just the story I wanted to tell, knowing that I had an ending and how to get them there. And trying to do it as many fun ways as I possibly can. There's going to be a lot of paranormal. There's going to be a lot of horror. There's going to be a lot of time travel. There's going to be a lot of aliens. There's going to be a lot of ghosts. There's going to be a lot of mythology and the paranormal stuff that everybody that I really love, and I hope a lot of other people love. But really, my mission was to try to write a basic. Not a basic story, but try to write a story where I could change genres and have it make sense to the story. I love it when movies or TV shows or comics or books bend those genres to expectations, to people's expectations. And my goal was to really, especially as I got older and I started seeing it more and more from some of those smaller movies and some of those TV shows that not everybody watched that got canceled after 10 or 11 episodes, I wanted to find a way to be able to keep these characters but have them be in situations that people don't always know what's going to happen. Is it going to take a sci-fi turn, or is it going to take a horror turn? Is it going to be more? Are they going to time travel this time, or is it going to be parallel universes? So and have it all make sense. So my mission statement was to do a story, create a story, and create characters that could span genres and still have a cohesive story that made sense, that was fun, that had a lot of action, that had a lot of scares, that had a lot of adventure in it, and have likable characters that were very flawed, but still had good intentions and a good heart behind them. So that was essentially my mission statement.
Fair enough. I like this already. Yeah, I think I said it before where it's like it's nice to see something where it can bounce around and actually do it well. And there really isn't much of that. I think there's a couple TV shows. I don't know if one would count, so I'm just gonna kind of hold off on titles. But
Yeah.
like, there is a few that I may think of that could pull it off too, that you might be thinking of. But anyway, it's just nice to see it because it's not the same thing over and over as you were trying to say earlier. It's like, oh, we already know what it is. Why am I keep reading? So as long as you keep going with something fresh and new and works with the story, then yeah, it's gonna grab the person's attention because it's like, oh, this is different, or I wonder what's gonna happen this time to try to stop it. So are they gonna time travel? Or there's so many cool things you can really do even with time traveling alone.
Yeah, and one of my goals was also to push myself as an artist and a writer. So if I created a time travel story, if they go back to 1654, what does that look like? What would I need to do? What kind of research and how would I have to educate myself as an artist and a writer to be able to make that look realistic and to be able to convince people that I'm not just drawing some trees in the background and calling it a day, but really putting these characters in those times and in those environments. So it was really also about pushing myself as a writer and an artist, and I hope that it will be successful.
Yeah, I hope so too because it's nice, but it's just a nice little thing, and it's your kind of like your hobby or job now, depending on I guess how you look at it. If not both, then it's just something you love to do and you want to tell your story, and you got to be thankful too because I think you were mentioning it earlier too, where most people really don't. Well, I guess I might be adding to this now, but most people don't have the chance to really finish their story. They may have the first 3 issues out, and then you never hear about another issue of the story ever again. So it's good to see that your story is still going strong. So.
Yeah, I'm chugging along here. I think one of the things also is looking towards the long term. My hope is that in 3 generations, my great grandchildren pick up one of the books that I wrote and drew and said, "What's this, Dad?" And my great grandchild will say, "Oh, that's your great grandfather. He drew and wrote comic books, for a living, hopefully at one point." So for me, that's always fun to think about in the future when I'm long gone. My grandkids and their kids and their kids having this thing that was me, that will hopefully last for generation after generation in my family, I hope.
Hey, that's fine by me. That's like me saying, hopefully somebody will remember us when we made this podcast because I find me and Tessa nice people. We try to interact with everybody we can, as best as we can too. So
far, I found you both very pleasant. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. We try to do our best. I mean, it's really nice too when I hear there's a few people that we've interviewed. This is a fun fact for everybody, including David. But there has been a few people that we have interviewed where we literally got a compliment of the fact that they were like, as many interviews that I've done with people, you guys, I have to say, are awesome because usually when an interview is done, the person is already hung up and gone, and I'm in the lobby by myself. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, no, screw that.
Yep.
I'm here to talk to you, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk till you leave. So.
Yeah, part of it for me is about making those connections and finding people that are interested in the same things I am. I mean, that's half of the fun.
Exactly. And then you get to learn new things like this. If you didn't contact us, we never would have learned about the Offspring. And so, that's another amazing thing. And speaking of the Offspring, real quick, David. Well, it's a two-part question, and the first one is, where can people find your comic book series? And two, do you have any type of websites or social media where you post updates where people can follow along for future releases?
I do, yeah. I have a Twitter, Instagram, and my Facebook page. So my Twitter handle is @handedcorrect. So instead of correct-handed, it's backwards, @handedcorrect. My Instagram, david.whalen.1614. And I do a lot of my communicating through Facebook, so @correct-handed-productions. And you can find any of my titles. I have a couple more titles besides just The Offspring. But I have the Offspring for print and digital on Amazon.com, and you can just keywords Offspring and Whalen. And then I have for digital also, and this is what I really like, is on ComicCentral.com. You can get the digital individual issues for 99 cents, and the trade, the first 4 issues, for $2.99. So they're a little bit cheaper, a little bit more manageable for people who are on a budget. So I really like that Comic Central is there to be able to make those cheaper options for other people rather than Amazon. And a lot of people might not like getting from Amazon the Big Brother type taking over the world type thing. So those smaller platforms are good for having cheaper options for other people. I also, Paul, I have a couple other books. Do you mind if I plug those also?
Go for it.
So I have a 100-plus page graphic novel. It's a black and white novel, but it's called The Loved Ones, and it's about the children of classic movie monsters who hunt down their parents, who are trying to find their parents who were abandoned by their parents, so they're trying to hunt their parents to figure out, 1, why they abandoned them, and 2, what to do with them once they find them. And it's a fun read, and I'm pretty excited about it. It was actually 2-3 weeks ago, it was the Comic Central Book of the Week. So if you go onto the ComicCentral.com website and you click on the Books of the Week, you'll see The Loved Ones right there. And it's I think it's a really fun read. It was written by Brian Menard from Dojo Kun Comics and drawn by me. So that's a good one. I also have a 4-issue miniseries called Evolution Utero, which is about a superhero before they're actually born. So the mother of the superhero is not a very nice person. She accidentally gets pregnant, quote-unquote, accidentally gets pregnant, and she finds that the fetus in her belly is developing superpowers. And the story is how that fetus and how those powers change her, hopefully for the better. And that's a pretty not straightforward superhero. It's got a lot of different genre aspects to it, but I'd say that's the most superhero thing that I've ever created. And it was written and drawn by me and colored by a couple different artists. So I wish I could remember all their names right now, but I can't. And then my last one is I have a novel that I wrote, and it's a Western called The Last Ride to Tyburn. And that's also available on Amazon.com for print and digital. And for me, that was just to see if I could do it. So I decided over a span of 2 years, I had a story, I had the characters, I knew how it started, I knew how it ended. So getting through all the middle stuff, and I think it's a fun read called The Last Ride to Tyburn. If you like Westerns, give it a shot.
Well, The Loved Ones, I'm definitely now going to have to check out from you. So
I appreciate that.
Caught my attention. So I like
it's a fun one. I really like that one.
Yeah, that's cool too. You said black and white as well?
It's black and white, yes. We decided to forego just because of the monster movie theme that it have. We thought black and white would just be perfect for it, and it did. It worked out really well. I think that's one of the better things I've ever drawn and been a part of, and it was really good. I enjoyed it.
Wow. Well, yeah, you sold me on that one already, so I'm gonna have to look that up.
So yeah, check it out. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but David, thank you so much for your time, though. I appreciate it, and we'll have to have you on again, hopefully in the future for something. Maybe like one day when I get all caught up with your issues, I can be like, all right, let's talk about this story.
Yeah, you can tell me all the places that I messed up the story.
Well, maybe I should be the one saying, so, okay, you need to explain this to me.
Yeah, sure. No problem. Yeah, I'd love to be back on. I had a good time. Thank you very much. I appreciate you, and tell Tessa I said thank you also. And tell Darsh I said thank you also.
You're welcome, David.
And Darsh will be listening, so I'm pretty sure he's going to appreciate it. So
that sounds great.
All right, David, thank you so much again for your time. And everybody go check out the Offspring and get it like everywhere. And make sure to check out his other stuff. Everything that we talked about is going to be in the description of the episode below, followed by all the links. Hopefully, if I can find everything, I'll pile it all together. If it's not all there, just send me a message and say, Paul, what the hell? Not all the links are there. And then I'll go and fix it. But until next time, people, I guess make sure that, you just stay scary.